Welcome to Parallel's Remote Application Server webcast about Citrix replacement. In this session today, we'll be discussing about different opportunities and a way to replace Citrix with Parallel's Remote Application Server. Before we get started, please make sure if you have any questions or comments, please post them in our chat window, and we will address it in the end of this webcast. So let's get started. Parallels is a global leader solutions for desktop management, remote application server, and Microsoft SCCM. So we were all known in the Parallels desktop product where you can run Windows desktops on your Mac, but over time we added new solutions. One of them is Parallels Remote Application, which is the main topic today. How can we run Windows applications into any device? And as well, Parallels Mac Management for SCCM. For all of our products, you can always get more information from our website, which is www.parallels.com. From a customer-based perspective, we are in several industries, and here are a few examples where we are. So we are in the government, education, healthcare, automotive, and other industries that you can see in this screen. Also, for information about our customer case studies, you can always find more information in our website. So let's get started and talk about Parallels Remote Application Server. So basically, it is a solution that easily delivers any Windows application or even a desktop using Microsoft Remote Desktop Services or RDS or major hypervisors. So we run on KVM, we run on Microsoft Hyper-V, ESX, and Xen servers. Okay, depending on the use case that you have, you can address different scenarios as you wish. The second point is you can use a Windows application on iOS Android devices, but we introduce a new method with a much better experience, which I'll be showing today in the end of the conversation today. We can also use applications on a PC, Mac, if you have Chromebooks, Raspberry Pis, and the delivery method can be either using a client or a very rich HTML5 client. Applications are never installed on the local client, and the whole processing, it is done on the server side. So this is very similar to what you have today in Citrix, but we have a better experience and, of course, cost compared to what you have today. And we're going to see that as well. Now, from a deployment perspective, you can deploy remote application server today on-premise in your data center or existing hosting environment, but as well as you can deploy it today on AWS and Azure. For Azure use cases, you can just go to Azure Marketplace and you can select the virtual machine and start a proof of concept right away. From an architecture perspective, in every single deployment we have, we will be leveraging remote desktop services and, of course, Windows servers. A big differentiator we have from Citrix, which is very important, is the same server that we have what we call the publishing agent, which is also called the controller. In Citrix names Xen Desktop Controller, can oversee all of your Windows servers. So if you're running Windows Server 2016, which is the latest and greatest, but we can go all the way back to Windows Server 2003 Service Pack 1. And you have one place that you can manage all of these environments. The second important thing when you deploy a remote application server, we have robust printing and scanning capabilities. Scanning and USB redirection is enabled out of the box, and we support multiple thin clients. So if you're using today technologies that you have, ThinPrint or other complex printing solutions, we can replace it once you start using remote application server. On the mobility side, we have a brilliant mobile experience that you're going to see today in the demo, and as well you can try in your own environment. We have instant deployment with wizards where you can deploy new terminal server roles, application roles, remote PC or VDI components, and seamless remote file access. So we can control what folders users can see. And we actually now introduce a true integration between remote application server and unified profile disks from Microsoft. And on top of that, from a use-to-use perspective, specifically for the end user to feel it easy, seamless, very friendly, we provide one-touch deployment, email invitations, migration of your Citrix environment to remote application server, and as well a single website that you can access full client applications as well HTML5 applications. So one entry point, everything can have access to it. From a management perspective, it is one console that all of your users, all of your administrators and delegated administrators, you have access to manage them. So it's going to be very straightforward to add new applications and services that you have. From an IT perspective, we're actually increasing your security because we are using only one entry port. You can use different ways to give access to the applications to the end users. So you can use IP forwarding, you can use NAT, or you can use DMZs, and so on. On the scalability side, we can easily scale gateways to address hundreds or thousands of users connected to the infrastructure. And at the same time, we scale for you the terminal servers. And from a scalability and actually load balancing perspective, you can extend your deployment using cloud service providers like AWS and Azure. And in this case, you just need to have a site-to-site VPN, and then you can either have terminal server roles, high availability roles, or other roles involved in remote application servers, deploying or managing your environment. Of course, every case is a case, and we can discuss more details in a proof of concept or a demonstration for you. The user experience, you can choose any device as the client wants. Of course, if you want to add certain restrictions, those could be applied at any time. And on the cloud readiness, I think I just mentioned both of these names, so I don't have to cover them again. Now, on the Brilliant experience side, we provide what we call the native touch gestures for mobile devices. And this works very well on iOS and Android. So you can tap, click, maximize, interact with the application or the Windows application into the iOS device. What is very important here is the way the interaction happens make the access for the end user so much simpler and pretty much error-free. And we're going to see that as well in the demonstration. Another very good point is we do actually PDF printing, but we came with a much better approach, which is local peripheral redirection. So if you have AirPrint in your iOS or printers installed in your Android devices, no problem. We integrate them out of the box, which means for your end users, it's one-click printing. Now, on the cloud side, I think we just spoke about this one. But just to reinforce it, if you have your own cloud, or if you're thinking to use a hybrid or even move all of your resources to the cloud, we are compatible, we have been certified, and we already have customers using major cloud providers. On the scalability side, which is very good and very important from an end user and management perspective, is you instantly deploy pre-built VDI templates if you have VDI use cases. If you have templates for terminal servers, you can just push them using your hypervisor, and then we just need to link them into remote application server. And the way that you can scale is fairly simple and fairly fast. So as long as you add new servers, you can add them much quicker and then deactivate it when you don't need it anymore, which is very different from a Citrix perspective, right? Because you need to use PVS to clone the VMs, add them, deploy the XenApp applications, the controller piece, link it back, and then you can add it to the pool. As long as you have the server available, you can either push the client or to manage the servers, or you can have them pre-built in your image and then link it back to the console. Very soon, we will be able to use PowerShell commands when you clone those VMs to automatically add them into your environment. From a security point of view, advanced access control with highly granular permissions are compatible and able to be set up with policies and controls that you can do from the server side, data segregation and encryption, and support for two-factor authentication. like radius, SafeNet, and DeepNet technologies. Now, when we compare ourselves to Citrix and other technologies, we position ourselves with a few important points. It's easier to deploy, maintain, and manage. You do not have to have a specialist or a group specialist certified for every single use of remote application server. So you can use other admins to control our solution. It is simple by design, a single console, a single way to oversee the entire solution. So it's very fast to deploy and integrate with other components in your organization. It is cost effective with a fast ROI. We can reduce Citrix costs significantly, by 60% depending on the use case, and quickly remove Citrix and add remote application server. And we have a few stories to tell you about that. It is straightforward to use because everything is included. So every single component we have, from a terminal server agent, publishing agent, the gateway, and even our own high availability load balancer, is all inclusive. So you don't have to buy modules because it's all included in your pricing. And we support different technologies like Microsoft RDS, from where the applications are installed, hypervisors, and also remote PC technology. And here is actually showing how the price can be compared in US dollars, of course, when you replace VM Horizon or Citrix XenApp with Parallels Remote Application Server. So we can save up to 60% on the Horizon side, 35% on XenApp in a standard use case. But if you have expensive NetScalers, this number can grow up really fast and go all the way to 60%. In version 15.5, which we released a couple of months ago, we have made significant improvements on the client side, especially in the mobile device area. Improvements for larger environments where now we have load balancing for all of our components, including the controller servers. You can have not only 2 controllers, but you can have as many as you want to distribute the load for very complex and large environments. And with Microsoft Windows 2016 and Azure Message, we are certified, and we have now a few customers now using Windows Server 2016 on-premise and as well using on Azure and AWS. And here's just an illustration how we used to use our ODUI for the mobile devices. On the left side, you can see it was kind of a little bit clunky, hard to use, but with our new interface, it is completely touch. You can have a magnifier to drag, to click, move things around. And to mimic what the desktop provides, you have what we call in the bottom the app launcher, where you can switch from one application to another, which is also will be demonstrated in a few minutes. And the client side, more support to non-Windows platforms, specifically now that we support H.264 for video streaming for all platforms, including the mobile devices and as well to Linux clients. And if you need to do auto reconnect, custom folder redirection, a great thing that we do on the Linux client, which was a very big thing on Windows, is now available. And for Chrome clients, which was a big request from our education customers, now we do time zone redirection and also the way to swap mouse buttons if you have that need. So it's much more integrated from an end user perspective. We just spoke about Windows Server 2016, so just to highlight what we do now. And let's talk why, actually the big reasons we're here today on how do we migrate or why we should migrate from Citrix to Parallel Remote Application Server. So 90% of the Xen desktop market and 85% of XenApp users would consider switching from Citrix to something else for 2 major reasons. One of them is cost, and the second one, it's very complex to manage and maintain. So let's take a look into this first one, which is related to the cost analysis. We know it's very expensive, license, maintenance, and Citrix has been changing the license model and cost, recently. The second one, the expensive recurring cost for software maintenance. And with new versions of Windows, you need to, build a new Citrix farm, which makes more complex steps from a migration from one version to another. And management and administration, it's extremely complex. And that leads to the complexity side is, from a management perspective, you have to use different applications to manage a Citrix environment. Studio, Director, and if you have a NetScaler, you need to use a NetScaler web portal. The upgrade disruption is fairly complex, as you probably know, and the different license types of what you use for a Citrix. Application desktop, VDI, remote access, load balancing, and of course, the NetScaler cost that might be very expensive. Finally, it depends on database and database costs. From a management perspective, we do not use a SQL Server, for example. Everything is done with our own databases, and they replicate automatically from one environment to another. So to do a Citrix replacement, it requires 3 steps, and actually it's very simple. Install Parallels Remote Application Server in your farm. We will push the terminal server agents to the servers, and we'll be publishing applications or desktops or files for intended users for the pilot. And throughout that period, we'll do the setup. And then, of course, you can start decommissioning your Citrix farm. From a case study perspective, here we have 2 use cases, one from Martin's Properties Limited and Bay Dermatology. The key message here is easy to use. The benefit of switching was cost effectiveness and use, and as well how quickly the performance can be improved. We just recently migrated in a university here with 750 concurrent users from Citrix to Parallel Remote Application Server. We did a pilot, and all users are saying the performance and the usability is much, much better than what they had before. And for more case studies, we have more information at our website. And with that being said, we'll just jump into our technical demonstration. And if you have questions, remember, just post them in our chat window and we'll be addressing them in the end. So let's connect to the iPad now and open the Parallels client and connect to the demo environment. Once connected, we can pick the applications that are pre-populated here by application groups or rows, and we will open Microsoft Excel on Windows Server 2016. Once the application is open, we will leverage the new features we have, it's in our magnifier, where we can identify pixel by pixel what you have in the app and use the function that you have in the app. In this case, the chart, make it bigger or smaller. I can pick a specific cell, for example, number 5, and then change the settings. So I can just tap and use the magnifier to select precisely and change dynamically the content. As you can see, the number 5 changing colors. And also, we can send this particular output to a printer. So let's say I want to send this to my printer, which is in my iPad, send to print, and we use the Parallels printer driver. The Parallels printer driver replaces the PDF export that you would have to export, download, open, and print. Here with one-click printing action, you're sending to your printer. Very, very simple. The same effect happens on the HTML5 client, which we'll be seeing in a couple of minutes. The second important component I want to showcase in the iOS experience and Android as well, it is the app launcher. And as you can see here, when you tap on the button that it's highlighted in red, we can see the application already open. Let's say now I open another Excel file, let's say my personal expenses, create, and when I launched the app launcher, now I can see both applications and I can toggle between one and another. But let's say I want to introduce another application, and in this case I want to open Word. Sharing the same desktop experience, I have Word now open, open a new blank document, say hi there, and the app launcher now is showing you the other application as well. And let's say I want to go back to my original Excel spreadsheet. Tap here and voila, the transition is very, very simple. I'm using an Apple keyboard, but if I want to leverage specific function keys, I can just close my keyboard here and use the native keyboard interaction. And I can use F keys, for example, or even arrows, or even home and page up, page down that you see in a normal keyboard. A lot of people think this is a regular iOS keyboard, but in reality, this is coming from our client interaction between user and the application itself. Another big aspect to show you here is if I want to use a full Windows 10 type of experience in my tablet. So I can go back to my app launcher and launch a virtual desktop. And we're in the process to launch the Windows 10 session here, where we can see a Windows 10 experience. And in this case, I think using the mouse would be easier for me. So I can click on the gear, use the mouse pointer, and now I can use a left and click feature buttons, as you can see here on the desktop. So I can, the same thing that I did before, open Microsoft Word, open an application and interact with that. Another interesting feature that we have here in the desktop, if it's click on the gear, you see that the microphone is open. We can use applications now with bidirectional audio. And if you have the use case of Skype for Business, this could be a use case for that. So let's disconnect and switch the demo now to the HTML5 client experience. So going back to my desktop, I can come here to my Chrome browser. And here I already logged in, but I can see the same look and feel on the application side. And if I double click on Microsoft Office and right click on Excel, I have now the option to either choose the client or the HTML5 client experience. HTML5 client does not require any software installed on your computer, which is great when you're traveling. So when the application is launched, I see the same application look and feel. I can open my DB in Business again. Let's use a read-only view. And one thing that I wanted to highlight, which is very important, is if you collect in file print, it does not generate PDF like in the mobile client. It will use the same parallel printer driver, and now we will interact with the local printer that we have on my Mac. Here is the output in one-click printing as well. Another feature we have in the portal is here the task list or the task applications that you have. If you open more than one, you can switch between back and forth like a virtual desktop. So I maximize the app here, and I can click on the DNB again, switch back and forth. The X button is an actual X button that will be closing the app. Clicking on the X, it closes the app. Very seamless. Now, if I want to use richer experience like local disk access or even scanner or better compression because the connectivity is not so great, because the internet is not working great in the hotel, we can right-click over here and use the Parallels client. And now we'll be connecting to my demo environment like I did before, and I carried my sessions from the iPad client to client because it's similar resolution. And here I can see my Excel and my Word document here. If I minimize, they will become icons on my desktop, and once I close them, they will be either saved or the information can be locally saved or saved on the cloud. It's up to the user or the administrator to decide. And the last part of this demonstration, I wanted to show a little bit more about the backend on the console side. We have done significant improvements in the farm level when we talk about publishing agents. Now we have the active publishing agents where you have more than two that can be acting as a production environment distributing the load. This resolves two problems. One of them is in the past we had an active passive load balancer on the publishing agent that was manually changed. Now it's automatic. And now we automatically distribute the load and performance between different publishing agents. So the publishing agents, they're talking to each other every X amount of seconds, and they are controlling independently and talking about who is connected, what applications they have. In case one of those publishing agents fails, hardware, VM is not available, run out of disk space, or whatever, the other publishing agents will automatically pick up the load and redistribute. So the users will not be disconnected. And if they get disconnected because of internet connectivity issues, they will be reconnected to the session that they have saved. The second piece that have been improved, which I showed you visually, the HTML5 gateway, is the ability now that you can determine what kind of experience the portal will act. So the first one is only HTML5, like we had in version 15.0. Only launching the Parallels client, which was a very specific feature of the web portal, which you do not have to use it anymore. You can use the HTML5 gateway only launching Parallels clients. Or what I already have showed you before, which is the Parallels client with the fallback feature. Again, it's important here, the gateways are now load balanced using our hub. And this information now it's configured here in the gateway payload and the SSL payload, where we add those different gateways and we are distributing gateway traffic automatically. On the policy side, very important features is related to printing. In the connection properties now here in Experience, we have the universal printing compression policy that works based upon connection speed, auto discovery, we're metering in real time, or you can change different settings between user groups or gateway access and so on. But we recommend customers now to use based on connection speed, and then we determine the best way to compress it. The same feature is now introduced into the universal scanning compression policies. So you can leverage that out and make it, printing faster and more reliable, and scanning, of course. On the licensing side, now we introduce where we show you, for example, what is the account that you have the license activated. And for Splunk customers, you can use the same license key for multiple farms. And every day that information is handed over to Parallels My Account. We have a few YouTube videos showing how Parallels My Account works, but essentially we are taking a snapshot every day of peak and rolling that up to My Account. We resolve a big problem in the licensing count. Up to version 15, if you had two users, let's say user one connected, one from the iPad and other one from a PC, we used to consider that as two counts of concurrent user. In version 15.5, that has been resolved, and if you have two user ones connected from a Parallels remote application server perspective, it's only one license count. On the reporting side, we have improved the performance and the loading, where you can now see broader time frame of the reports. In this case, I'm showing you like the last 7 days of application usage. The loading process is much quicker. And here in the user activity, I actually put a much longer time frame showing from end of June all the way to today how the users have been accessed with active times, idle times, and disconnect times. So basically, we have done a lot of those improvements that are under the hood, but making sure the product is much more scalable and now reliable for larger environments. So that basically covers my demonstration. And now I would like to open the questions for our Q&A and address the questions that you might have.